Hey guys, Eric Crownover from Nerdy Geek Talk, the source of all your nerdy geeky needs, here with episode 1 of TFPrimecast, our Transformers Prime, the show, breakdown, episode by episode. Um, Joining me here today are Aaron. How you doing?
What's going on? I still think it should be called Prime Power Hour, but hey, that's just me.
See, but that pressures us to make it around an hour, and nah.
It's a name. Doesn't have to mean that's what we do. You can't
That's
see the look on Eric's face, but it's a quizzical one.
that's actually kind of fair. I mean, I don't like to be misleading, but you're honestly kind of right. And then also joining us today is John Darth Forge. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. So, typically, we are going to have either John or Nightwolf Jesse on as the perspective of someone who has not seen the show before. So, this was John's first time watching the show. Um, Aaron is on here because, well, I believe you like the show, right?
I enjoy it,
But
but
yeah, it's not his
Beast Wars
favorite.
is better.
Yeah, you said it's not even in your top three, right?
I don't think it's in my top three if I really look back on stuff now.
Meanwhile, it is most likely my favorite show. I mean, I don't really go back and forth. It's probably my favorite Transformers show. Just to specify, it's not my favorite TV show ever. We have another show about that. Um, that's literally the Holocron Herald. That's about Clone Wars. It's essentially what this is going to be, is a breakdown the same way the Holocron Herald is a breakdown of Clone Wars. This is just Transformers Prime. So for the first episode that we are doing right now, we're going to be covering the first three parts of the five-parter season premiere, which is it called Rising Darkness? Was that no,
Um,
that's later. I totally just
Darkness. No, Darkness Rising, isn't it?
Oh, okay, whatever.
I don't know. I can check on my phone right now on Netflix.
All right, sounds good. But either way, we did the first three episodes, and so we're just gonna go through, break it down, give our impressions, basically, see how well it holds up. That's the whole point of going
Yeah.
back, is to analyze it, to look at all the flaws. And in all honesty, just because you find flaws in something doesn't mean you can't love it. In fact, that it only justifies it more if you see the flaws and love it anyway. So the whole point of this is not to ruin the show for anyone, especially because it's my favorite show. So I'm not trying to ruin Transformers Prime for anyone. But I am more than willing to point out the problems, but I'm also going to point out the things that I think it does great. So that said, did you find it or no?
Oh yeah, Darkness Rising.
Okay, so I just mixed up the words. That said, let's dive into episode 1. So basically, just to cover what happens in that episode, we're introduced to everyone. The opening scene, basically, Cliff Jumper
With the
dies.
exception of one.
Who's the one?
Yeah, we're not introduced to Miko until the next episode.
Okay,
No,
robots.
Miko's at the very end of the
Oh
first
yeah,
episode.
that's right. Yeah.
Special Agent Fowler
Oh, true,
that
true.
isn't introduced
He's
until the
not a
next episode.
super main.
Not until later.
Yeah, he's not a super main character until later. He's definitely a main character in this arc, though. So you're right. But we're introduced to the main robot cast, is actually what I was referring to, but also the humans. I wasn't even thinking about that. But all that, and Cliff Jumper dies. So Starscream kills Cliff Jumper in literally the opening scene. Well, it's less than 5 minutes in,
Yeah.
and basically at the end, Megatron returns. I think those
Yeah.
are the two really major events that happen in this episode. So let's just
And
go through
then
this.
yeah, that's essentially it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll mention what happens in the next two episodes as we go through. But first episode. So first thing I have is literally the first thing I wrote is The Rock. Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Cliff Jumper, who is the character who dies in less than 5 minutes, is voiced by The Rock, Dwayne Johnson.
Does The Rock voice him later on in the series? No,
I
right?
don't believe so. I believe it changed. Although I think the person does a pretty good job of actually sounding
Yeah.
similar, but I do not believe it was him.
Yeah.
Just to clarify, he doesn't come back to life later in the series. It's
a
It's a
flashback.
flashback episode, which has a character that supposedly dies then, but isn't dead. But we'll get to that.
You're spoiling it for John.
He has no idea what I'm talking about yet. But so yeah, John, did you notice that Cliff Jumper was voiced by The Rock?
No, I did not. That was not one of the voices I recognized.
Yep, that
However,
actually.
that is pretty cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just thought that is cool that he is in Transformers. I think I could be wrong on this. I think I remember seeing a video that he wanted to be on something like so his kids could see it. Like not that his
Yeah.
movies are bad, but that like something the kids could watch. So I think that was part of the reason he took it, but I'm not entirely sure on that. So
No, I think I remember hearing something like that.
yeah,
Whether it's true or not, I'm not sure.
exactly. So I do think that's neat, and I thought he sounded good. I like
Yeah.
Cliff Jumper for the 5 minutes
I
until he
actually
dies.
thought, what is it? Him and Cliff and RC did really well, and I think they played off each other well. The Rock played off of I can't remember who voices RC, but he played off her well for like the few minutes he was there. And they did, and this is actually in my notes, they did a well-disguised exposition dump. Like it was a believable conversation and not one where they're just like, "Oh, this is happening. We're kind of explaining it again to each other for like no reason." No, they're like Jasper Nevada is not exactly a party. Like that's like something I could see them saying and stuff.
Exactly. So it's a good setup. And then he drives to an energon deposit / mine area, and because he detects it on his sensor,
And he's right next to it.
and then the giant ship comes above him when he sees it. And he goes, "Oh gosh, Decepticons!" My question is, how does his sensor detect the energon that's like right near him, but not the ship that's looming above him? In all
Yeah.
fairness, it's possible that the ship could be cloaked, but I
It
just
usually
wonder, like,
is.
that is fair. So I guess that's not unreasonable. But I was just
Yeah.
thinking that my first thought whenever I saw that was just he senses the energon, but not the giant ship. Like I feel like
Yeah.
you'd see that, but whatever.
That was a question that kept on popping up in my head was how are people not seeing this random ship just flying around? It's like
They-
this massive
It
ship.
is because it's usually cloaked. So that is
Well,
actually somewhat fair.
not physically cloaked. Like they reveal
No,
later
scanners,
on.
to scanners.
Yeah, and they usually fly like above like the stratosphere essentially.
So you
So.
usually can't see it. But my next question is: we see everyone because he radios for help, and then RC and you. See
I do want to
Optimus
talk about
following.
something before that.
Okay.
I thought Cliff getting knocked around, like when they had him fighting the cons and they were kind of like punching him back and forth, it does the slow-mo and all that. I thought that was a very, because this is the pilot episode and you want to do as much as you can to show what you've got in the pilot, and they showed very well how much they can do dynamic movement. Like
Yep.
that whole scene was just very dynamic. The camera's spinning, it goes into the slow-mo and transfers really well. Like it works, and they really knocked it out of the park for that scene.
Exactly, and that's not something that like is just a one-off, like you see here, and then it doesn't
Exactly.
happen. It is something that they do consistently throughout the season. I mean, throughout the show, which
And it usually looks pretty good.
they won awards for, like the animation action
Yeah.
sequences, I believe. So it's deserved, and they show it off right away, which I think is good. But my question is next is you see all the characters like they're radioing in saying where they all are. They're all pretty far away. They're in different time zones. Yet they say drive back to base and we'll all ground bridge there, like to Cliff Jumper.
Yeah.
Why didn't they just ground bridge each one? Like just like okay, I'll ground bridge you from where you are right now. I'll ground bridge you next. I'll ground bridge you next. You next. I mean, I guess technically no one was at base. But just whoever got back to base first could have ground bridged everyone. But
Yeah, I thought RC was like near the base because she's talking about Jasper, so I assumed she was near there, but I'm not sure.
yeah, I would assume so. But technically, she could have just been talking about that because that's where Cliff Jumper is. And he's
Yeah.
complaining about it. So
Yeah.
we don't know. But I did think it was interesting that it was everyone drive back, even though we're all in different time zones. So that's pretty far away to base, and then we'll all ground bridge there. But I don't know.
And they don't exactly go faster than normal vehicles, as we've seen.
Yeah, I mean, like they can go as fast as the max speed of a vehicle,
Yeah.
but from what we see throughout the series, they don't really go much faster whenever they're
Yeah.
in vehicle mode. I have he shot the energon. Why? I like how in the action sequence they specifically were like fist fighting at first, which is actually reasonable. Like it's like why wouldn't they pull out guns? It's because they're surrounded by energon. But then halfway through the fight, they just pull out guns anyways and start shooting and blow up all the energon. And that's
They
how,
do that constantly throughout like this 5-parter.
Yes, and Cliff Jumper, that's what takes him down essentially. Which my question is, why didn't they just start with that if they were going to do that anyways?
Yeah,
But whatever. It's honestly because they needed that cool fight scene.
and then he's dead in under 5 minutes.
Yes, he's taken out by that explosion. And, like he's not dead, but he's very much injured. You know, they're dragging him back. They take him on the ship, and Starscream, I forget what he even says. It's not much. It's whatever he says to him isn't very important. He just kills him right away. Stabs him
Yeah.
straight in the chest with his hand.
Guys, we can't afford the Rock anymore. What do we do?
So yeah, he kills him off like that, and I find that really interesting. That I think this is the first Transformers show where literally the opener is a character dying. Am I wrong on that?
I'm trying to think. I feel like that's happened somewhere before, but
I honestly don't think it has. At least not nearly as quick. Maybe the first
Yeah.
arc of a show, but not the first 5 minutes of a show.
it feels like it would happen in one of the Japanese series, if anything.
It's true. If I'm wrong, someone let me know, because I am curious. But I feel like that is an indication that this is one of the darker shows out of several, out
Yeah.
of most of them, in all honesty. I can't think of one that's, like, way darker. I'd say that this is probably the darkest. And I think that that sets the tone right up front that, like, they are very much in a position where they are not winning constantly. The Autobots are not the winners in this show.
Yeah.
So right away, you see someone die, and they are very unhappy about it. I have his return. Oh, then they're talking about Megatron's return. My question is, where was Megatron? Like, Optimus Prime says something about Megatron's return. Where did Megatron... Like, why did he... I'm assuming if they mean his return, that means he was on Earth.
Yeah. The Decepticons have clearly been there for a bit, and
Yeah,
so have the Autobots.
They said it's been 3 years since Decepticon activity on Earth that they've encountered. So that means that I'm guessing Megatron probably left around that time, and so that's when they've been like keeping
Yeah.
because they don't have Megatron. My question is, why did Megatron just leave for 3 years? I mean, obviously he has the.
They
dark
never
energon.
explain.
Yeah, exactly.
I
It's not
just
like what was his
assumed-
goal.
Whenever he came back, Starscream asked about the army that he was rallying. So I just assumed that,
That his
in
goal
the
was
3
to-
years
okay.
that he was
Yeah.
gone was to rally more Decepticons.
Could have been that. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that
That's
this show
actually-
doesn't explain, and you'll
That's
find that
actually
out
pretty
as you
fair.
watch it.
I think that's a fair explanation. That is a
I
setup.
would agree with that.
And so, in a way, he did. I'm guessing he went off. He couldn't find the Decepticons he was looking for, but instead found the Dark Energon, which he comes back with.
Yeah.
Also, I like how Starscream specifically like takes the radio transmission from Cliffjumper and RC after he kills her. He's like, after he kills him, he kills Cliffjumper and RC, and he goes, "Oh, let's use the advantage of surprise while we have it." How is it the advantage of surprise? She knows that he is dead.
Yeah.
Like, they were literally talking, and it's like, oh, I'm fighting the Decepticons. Life signal goes offline. I wonder what happened. Like, she's well aware that Decepticons killed Cliffjumper. What is the element of surprise you're talking about,
Yeah.
Starscream? I just didn't understand why.
Especially
he said
when,
that.
like, their attempt at an ambush is to just follow her through Jasper.
Yeah.
Which leads into us meeting Jack.
Exactly. Which,
Jack's entrance, like, so Jack
oh, wait,
progresses
I have
really
one
well.
line first before that.
Go for it.
It's where Ratchet specifically says, like, why are we here protecting humans?
Yeah, they don't want to help humans.
That's a common theme I've seen throughout, like, Prime, the movies. Like, in the movie specifically, Ironhide says that at one point whenever they're torturing Jazz. So I find that an interesting
You mean
trend
Bumblebee?
that started now. Oh, no. It's Jazz. Wait. No, Jazz and Ironhide both say things like that. Jazz says
Yeah.
it whenever they catch him. They're like, it's not right, let them leave. And then Ironhide says that later in the movie when they're actually torturing Bumblebee, he says, like, why are we fighting for them? They're a primitive and violent race. And he goes, why are
Yeah.
we so different? I find it really interesting that that's become a theme in Transformers in basically the last 10 years that, well, I say a theme, but it's not. It's only been in these two things, really. I don't think in RID it's like, let's stay hidden from the humans, but not necessarily
Yeah.
we don't want to protect them. But I do find it. I think it's an interesting concept.
It's definitely there in the comics.
Yes, where they don't really. It's just like, why should we? Why do we want to protect the humans? But Optimus is very much for it. I do find it interesting though that that's a direction they've gone that they never took before. Whereas like you know, in the 80s when it started out, it's like we're protecting the humans. Like we are not even questioning it. We never even thought about leaving them. Like it's just not an idea. Whereas it's like, why are we protecting them? Like they are not doing anything good for us. If anything, they make our lives worse. They make it harder. Why do we do this? And Optimus Prime is one.
They kind of do.
No, they do. I don't get me wrong. I'm not disagreeing with the Autobots. It is
Yeah.
it is very much true. The humans do not really help them. Meanwhile, he is the one who's always just, we have to, like we are,
Yeah.
it's not a debate. So I thought that was interesting. I just wanted to bring that up because I
Yeah.
forgot they'd done that in this series as well as the movies. I knew that was the
I
thing in
thought
the
that was
movies, but
interesting. But so my one of my major gripes with the human characters at first in the show is how generic they are.
so
Uh
that said, you want to say his introduction?
yeah, Jack's introduction is he works at basically McDonald's.
Yep.
Some kids are like, "How do I get a job like yours?" They come, they steal the food, he leaves, and like he has like this. They try to make him like this quirky, like weird high schooler. Like, oh my god, he's a bit of an outcast. Oh, it's like, but that character trope has been done to death. And like, what is it? Sierra's like, "How do you know my name?" And it's like that's not a weird thing to know. You live one. Jasper's a small town as far as we know. Like they established that a lot throughout the show.
I think it's
Two,
one of those things where it's like, you know me, but I don't know you. Like she doesn't
yeah,
care about. Like it's
but
supposed
it's
to
like
show
they
how
also go to high
unpopular he
school
is,
though.
but
It's like
I think it's
a
to show how unpopular he is.
yeah,
I'm not saying it works super well, but I'm just
yeah. It's like, but like I've known like I had a somewhat larger graduating class and stuff, and like I still knew most people's names or at least could recognize them. It's very unlikely that someone would just not recognize someone. Like you'd have to really
yeah.
be like. And I always thought that trope was kind of dumb, and they really kind of played up with Jack for that episode. It's not as big of a thing later on.
No,
You
he
still
very
have the
much
generic high school bully, but like,
exactly. They turned him into a good character later throughout the series. Especially
yeah.
he has some big moments later. But his intro, I did not remember it being this. I would describe it
And
as
then he
cringy.
like feels up RC, and it like
I
makes me
know. I had that in my
uncomfortable.
notes. He felt up RC, which was really
Like
weird.
it's like as like I could understand like one he's touching someone else's property in the first place because he thinks it's someone else's motorcycle. Like he actually sits on someone else's motorcycle. He thinks, which is strike number one. Two, as the audience, we know that's RC, so he's just feeling up this robot, and I'm like, this isn't. It's
So-
not okay. This makes me uncomfortable.
I know. I felt a little weird about it too. And in all fairness, like I don't know. I don't want to say that I could see someone feeling up their motorcycle, but it's not that weird.
And it's not even his. That's the
But
thing.
no, that is the weird thing is that yes, it's not his, and then he sits on it, which is just like that's boundaries crossed, man. But he's really weird and unpopular, and I guess he like needs to cling on to his dream or whatever. So I guess, but I had that in my notes that was specifically very weird. I had Jack feels up RC dot 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 dot.
That's literally how I wrote it. Yes, Jack feels up RC ellipsis.
Which is just really weird, and yeah, I thought the fast food was just odd. I'm just glad his character gets a lot better. I did not remember. I just was cringing the entire time they introduced his
God,
character.
yeah.
He's a good character later, I swear. I swear, people, but his introduction is
Yeah.
really bad.
But then we immediately go into Raph's introduction.
Yeah. Oh, I do have one. I have like two things before that, though.
John, do you have anything?
Oh yeah. Do you have anything on Jack's introduction, or I'm just like, don't let us skip past your notes if you have any.
Yeah, it pretty much what you guys thought. It was really weird. It wasn't a very good impression.
No. I think the impression they're trying to give is that he is really weird, but it didn't come off in like, he's really weird, but I'm interested in him. It was more like, he is weird, a little creepy, and I just don't like him, but whatever. I did find it interesting that whenever she's driving, the ambush starts and she drives away with him on her, and then she tries to drop him off. She can't because one of the Viacons chases him, so she goes and gets him. They go back, and then Bumblebee rams one of the Viacons on the road, and he goes, "Oh, is that a friend of yours?" And she goes, "No, family." Which I thought was very important because that is the first time that's specifically brought up, and that is that's probably the biggest theme throughout this show, more than any other show, I think, is that they are a family, at least spoken wise. You know, I wouldn't.
And they have that dynamic too. Like you can feel it like
yeah.
throughout the episodes, the way they talk to each other.
Exactly. They are very much. They're completely familiar with one another. They get each other. It's not that, and they have fights just like families. Like they don't always understand each other, but they very much push the theme of being a family in this show. And I think that first line, that was a good way to set it up.
Yeah.
Also, why did they not shoot Bumblebee? the Viacons, because they were shooting at RC, and then he comes, bumps them, and then is blocking them on the road, like constantly swerving in front of them. Like, why were they shooting at RC but wouldn't shoot at Bumblebee? I don't know. I just thought that was a bit odd.
Who knows?
Power of fan service.
Wait, what did you say?
The power of fan service.
People don't like RC, but Bumblebee, he's all cool. Then I have the fight which we see Raph here, but RC specifically takes on the two Viacons in robot mode, which I don't get why she stopped, because she pulled down in like this. Where is it? It's almost like a river, but there's no water. It's like under a bridge. It's under a bridge, basically.
Yeah.
On the side of a road, just down a hill.
And
But she transformed, stops, which I don't get why she transformed and stopped. They still totally could have tried to outrun them. But she transforms, turns, and starts taking them on hand-to-hand combat. Why didn't she shoot them? Like, why didn't she use her guns? She only tried to punch them this entire time, which I don't know. I don't get
I bring
it.
this up in my notes for episode 2, but like she does awful in this episode in fights
Yeah, she doesn't win.
compared to like all her other fights where she's like a straight up fighter and like all this stuff, and she's able to just beat people down with her bare fists. Like she does terrible.
Yeah, she does not do good. I don't get it. It might be because she's off her game, because you can tell.
I mean, I also chalk it up to the pilot. Like they were trying to show what they could do and stuff with movement and all that.
And in all fairness, a reason in universe could be that she was really weirded out by having humans and having to protect them and stuff like that. That was really unusual. They made that very clear that she was very much not used to humans. So I could say that threw her off her game. I think it's a little bit of a stretch to say that it threw her off that much.
I
But
just
still,
chalk it up to being the pilot.
that's fair. I'm just trying to think of an in-universe reason. That's
Yeah.
all I could come up with. But again, it's more of a stretch. I totally think you're right in terms of it's the pilot. They're just trying to show that, hey, we can do fights like this. Then we
Why
get.
was
Oh, you could go.
Why was this 12-year-old Einstein of a kid sitting in the middle, like under a bridge in the middle of a highway?
That's a
Raph
really
has
good
no
question.
friends.
Yeah, Raph really has no friends, which I think is something they actually do explore later. Like that's actually explained. I think.
He's also in high school, as far as I can tell.
Yeah, I don't think that's a surprise though, because I get that he's 12, but they really over-exaggerate how smart he is. And I say over-exaggerate. It's not impossible for a kid to be super smart and get accelerated into high school that young, but they are not capable of doing the things he does in an episode.
It's like
after
hyperbole.
this. It's the episode after this is where it gets insane. But yes, we get him.
Theory.
Oh, yeah.
Stephen Hawking transfers his consciousness into a
No,
12-year-old boy.
And secretly,
One of the things.
Stephen Hawking is in this show.
So I remember thinking this while watching it, and always throughout the show, they never explain why Raph is able to understand Bumblebee. Not once in the goddamn
I
show.
thought that too. I had that later. But yes, I
That
thought
was
that
very very strange how he.
They never
immediately knew
explain
what
it,
to
John. Like you'll never get an explanation
Yeah.
for it.
It's
And there's like
just
it's like
automatically knows.
It's like almost like how some people in Star Wars understand Chewbacca and some don't. But the thing is,
but like that's a language.
yeah,
Wookiee's a
exactly.
language.
That's a language that's really uncommon. Bumblebee's thing isn't a language. It's a bunch of
And it's like-
beeps.
I noticed this in like retrospect, and I'll bring this up when we talk about the other episodes. But there are things throughout these few episodes where like you just see like something's different about Raph, but they never really explore it.
Mm-hmm. Next up
For
is that we do have
BB-8's voice. I wrote down BB Bumble 8 because
In all
it
fairness,
sounds-
this
it's almost
happened
exactly
way,
like BB-8.
In all fairness, BB-8 almost sounds exactly like him because this came out way before BB-8 was even an idea. But you're not wrong. They sound really, really similar. Like I never even actually connected that. That's very true. I never thought about how almost identical they sound. That's
Yeah.
really close. That almost makes me wonder if the person who designed the sounds for BB-8 had any. I mean, I'm not trying to say that they stole it from the show, but I'm just curious if that drew inspiration or not, because that's really similar. And like I
Yeah.
said, this was out way before BB-8 was an idea. But I also had Bumblebee. It's the first time we see him like transform and fight. He has a cool intro where he smashes the Decepticon's face, or he transforms, just runs in, saves RC.
Yeah.
And then he gets beaten a little bit, but then he takes him down. But I actually thought that was a pretty neat intro to have him, come in, and he actually looked pretty cool smashing the Decepticons at first. So I was like, not a bad intro. I'm not a huge
Well,
Bumblebee fan in
you have to
general,
make
but
Bumblebee look
I
cool.
liked him. See, but normally they go off like the cute thing, and I actually find that they don't really play the cute card that much in this show. I think that's one of the reasons I don't hate Bumblebee in this. I say hate. I don't actually hate Bumblebee, but I actually like him in this show, is that they don't really play the cute card with him. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but
Because he's constantly beating the heck out of people.
yeah, he's not a little like, oh, he's so cute. Look at him, like, oh, he's like the child. Like, no, he's really not. Which I think is important, especially considering the show after this show, where he is
Yeah.
the leader. So I think that is neat. But yeah, I just thought that was interesting right up front. They're not playing the cute card with Bumblebee. He's an actual fighter.
Yep. And then we
Have good job, Miko, which I'm guessing is just her
Yep.
being weird. We have her intro, which is just very crazy. Like, what was she
Reference?
doing? Wait, what'd you say? You cut out.
There was a Fight Club reference.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, you don't talk about Robot Fight Club. The first rule for Robot Fight Club is you don't talk about Robot Fight Club. Yeah, I thought that was funny.
I think Jack speaks for the audience when they take Miko and he's like, "Why are we taking her?" I think he speaks for a lot of the audience when he says that. Because
Oh, yeah.
that's how I feel.
Well, I mean, in all fairness, you know the answer as to why.
I mean,
It's
yeah, I know
obvious, but-
why, but
no,
I'm like,
but
I don't like Miko like at all. I mean, I like her in some parts in the later seasons,
yeah.
but like at the beginning, she is unbearable. She's completely unbearable to me.
I don't hate her. I don't really like her. The first time I watched the show, I wasn't sure about her. Like you said, I do like her later. I'm kind of indifferent. I don't hate her. I know that she's some people's favorite human character, like in all of Transformers.
I don't understand.
Which I mean, I don't understand thinking that she's the worst, but I do not think she's the best either. So I would
Yeah.
just say she's just
I mean,
in the middle for me. She's
Then
really
again,
weird.
my favorite Transformer series is also like Beast Wars, and the humans are essentially non-existent in Beast Wars. And when they are there, they're protecting them out of necessity to preserve the future.
Yeah.
So I'm more like that's my kind of take on like the whole human thing. I prefer a series without humans and just kind of focusing on the Transformers. That's how I am. That's
no,
why I love
don't-
like the Fall of Cybertron stuff so much and
Yes.
those novels so much.
I prefer Transformer stuff without humans. That's just not possible to market most of the time.
Yeah,
Which is
Hey,
that's just
More
that's
Than Meets the Eye did pretty well.
Yeah. I'm not saying it's always impossible, but in terms
Yeah.
of a widespread TV show, especially nowadays, stuff like that, and the same
Oh,
thing with
yeah.
the movies, I think that I would like it more without the humans, but you need to have the humans in there to be relatable to the public.
I mean,
And-
Beast
and-
Wars made it work is the thing. Like that's how I look at it.
Yes,
They made
but
it.
I don't think Beast Wars could make that work anymore.
Yeah, that's probably true
Beast
though.
Wars worked when it worked, and don't get me wrong, it did, and it was great. It was a great thing, but I don't think that I think that at this point, you have to have humans in the show for the public,
Yeah.
not necessarily for the fandom. Which again, you have to remember they're
Yeah.
appealing to the public, not the fandom. So,
Exactly.
but yeah, basically, Jack does get that line, which basically covers the audience. It's why is she coming? They bring Miko, and we get right from the beginning. I thought was interesting. We get the story of Megatronus and Orion Pax. I don't know if they specifically
Well,
mention
part
those
of it.
names, but but they make it very clear off the bat that this is one of the
Yeah.
stories where Megatron and Optimus were like brothers beforehand.
Well, this
Is this the first
wasn't this
version
the
of that?
first-
I just realized that. That's become a common trope now. Like that's something that they
can't-
very much
yeah.
play up.
I need to look up something. I want to see a date for something. I want to know when the novels came out in comparison to that because they explored it as well.
Oh yeah, the novels made a very big deal about that. But yeah, I think this might actually be the first version of Transformers where it was. Wait, when did this come out in relation to the movie? The movie actually might have been the first version because they specifically say you were like my brother. This is the first place
That's
where they
true.
flesh it
And
out.
yeah, Prime came out before the novels, anyways. So
Okay, so this is the first part where they're really setting up that story. The movies mentioned it, so it is a thing that came from the
Yeah.
movies technically. But it is something that they actually explore in this, especially in this continuity with the novels. But we do
Oh, yes,
get it. We do
very
get it
much.
throughout the show. But I thought it was interesting. Very first episode, we find out that Optimus Prime and Megatron, while we don't know their original names, they were like brothers beforehand, and that it was Megatron got
Yeah.
corrupted and lost his way, and that's what he ended up changing sides and everything. Like Optimus changed
I mean,
sides, and so
what is interesting though is that the book Exodus did come out a few months before Prime aired, but they would have been working on their stories at the same time. So a line continuity.
Yep. So they were, I mean, they were aware of the direction they were going. But I did think that
Yeah.
it was interesting they mentioned that in the very first episode, which I like because that's an element I very much like in Transformers.
It's played up constantly throughout the series too,
and it's something that has not gone away either.
to the point of being a whole arc for one season,
Yeah.
like a whole mini story arc in a season.
I think that's the whole start of season 2, right? Is that how? Isn't it like how season 1 ends and then it starts season 2? I think.
Is that? I'd have to look.
I'm not sure, but I believe it is. But either way,
it's the ending of one season and the start of another.
it's definitely season 2. I mean, season 1 into season 2 because season 3 is Beast Hunters,
Yeah.
so it has to be. But yeah, so this is the first time we hear about that. John, what do you think about that? Do you think it's a better idea to have Megatron and Optimus Prime were once brothers, or do you think it's better to just have like, hey, they're like he's a really good guy and he's a really bad guy?
I think the personal connection makes it interesting, but I don't really care either way.
Okay, I'm just curious as to whether or not that finds whether or not people are really interested in that, or because I personally very much prefer the story that way. But I know that not everyone's that way. It's just like everyone sees, like the general public is well aware of the fact that Optimus Prime is a good guy and Megatron's a bad guy, whereas these stories like to make it a bit more gray, especially the novels, because guess what? Optimus Prime very much helped found the Decepticons.
Oh, he very much
He
did.
started that movement, essentially. He spearheaded it
Along with Megatron, yes.
Like, they were pretty much equal, but Megatron...
They went to the Senate together.
He would not have gotten nearly as far as he did without Orion Pax. And again, Orion Pax couldn't have done it without Megatron, because that's who inspired him. But yes, that is something that is very much a thing in this continuity, is that Optimus Prime essentially was one of the founders of the Decepticons. He split right when they took the name. Like, literally that second. Was like, because they both had ideas for what the name would be, and essentially the council just said, you're the new Prime. And that made Megatron go nuts. And Optimus just was shocked.
I think they explored it in the comics as well, but I think it might have been later as well, because like up until like 2011 you had like All Hail, I can't remember when All Hail Megatron was. It's older now, but I don't think it explored that much. That was the change.
I don't think they were ever that close, though. Like, I think that they did have somewhat of a relationship and they knew of each other, but they were not nearly as close as they are in this continuity. In this continuity, they were
exactly. They were affiliated in, like, they knew each other and talked to each other in the comics, but like they weren't really as close. Yeah.
So I do find it interesting that this is the first example of that. And then the only thing I have from from this episode is, where did the space bridge come from at the end? Like, there's a space bridge above Earth, and no one knows
they
about
established that later. I think that they were just kind of built or something. But
but no. My question is, how did Earth not know that?
Yeah, no, I can understand that.
I mean, I guess it could be far away, and that really Megatron is a spaceship, so he can fly somewhat fast, and they also locked onto his coordinates, so there is that, but I do find it a little
could be on the far side of the moon.
You know, that's actually totally valid. That it could be. I'm just curious, and like, how is there this giant space bridge in somewhat close to Earth, and Earth has no idea? Just a little odd. So that's about it for episode 1.
Then Megatron shows up, and the episode ends essentially.
Yep. Do either of you have any other things about episode 1?
What is it? Not really. I mean, more just like nitpicky things about how the show looked for the first episode. But once again, it was a pilot, so
yeah. And the animation gets better throughout. It's still pretty solid to begin with, but it gets very much better throughout.
There's just like this really weird part when Optimus Prime is giving that whole exposition dump about him and Megatron. He's like awkwardly bobbing back and forth, and I just found it kind of funny.
Wait, he is? Not? I don't remember that.
Yeah, if you like, as he turns his head, his entire body shifts every time he does it. It's actually pretty funny.
Huh? I actually don't.
But like I said, it's a little nitpick fun thing that I noticed.
One thing that this goes for all 3 episodes, but I'll just bring it up now, is that the music. I love the score to this show.
The entire score is on Spotify, if I'm correct.
It sounds like a movie score, Which,
Yeah.
don't get me wrong, the music to other shows is good, and I'm not even talking about the intro specifically, like the intro theme. I'm talking about the music that plays throughout the episode. It is more than any other show, like by far, like a movie score compared to anything else. Now, whether or not you think that's better or not, that's totally personal preference. But there's a lot more orchestral. Like it sounds a lot more like this is an entire movie score put into a TV show, which I think works really well for the series. But I'm just curious, did you guys notice that or think anything about the score? Or?
I definitely did.
Yeah, it's good.
Find that the score was pretty high quality.
Yeah, I thought it was magnificent. So, moving on to Aaron, do you know what year the series premiered? I know it was
2011 or 2010. I was just looking at the dates. Let me recheck that.
because I know that it's almost 10 years old, but it's not
Transformers Prime is November 26th, 2010.
Yeah, so it's 8 years old. Well, it's closer to 9, but still, I mean closer to 7, not 8, because it was 2017 when November's just happened.
Yeah.
Whereas, so it's getting to 8 years old. So it has been a while since this episode premiered. But anyway, episode 2.
I do have one more thing about the first episode.
Go ahead.
I noticed that I recognize the voice of the voice actor for Ratchet, and so just to confirm that it is who I thought it was, I looked it up, and the voice actor is Jeffrey Combs, who played 9 different roles in Star Trek and several different roles in some of the DC animated shows.
And Brainiac in Injustice 2. That's his most recent thing that I know of.
Yep, that is true.
Yep,
But
I
really
recognize that playing
like the
Injustice
actor.
2. Yeah, I like him too. This is what I think I mainly know him from. But Injustice 2, I had played that game, and I would, because it'd been a while since I'd watched this show, so I couldn't think of it right off the bat. But whenever I played the game and he first had his first line, I was like, I know his voice, but where? And I couldn't think of it. And it took me till he said another line or two later that I was like, that is Ratchet. That is Ratchet from Transformers Prime, Jeffrey Combs. So, yes.
I know him mostly from Star Trek. He plays like several major characters, and they're all different characters. They're mostly alien characters, which is why they can get away with it. But I really do like the actor. So
I actually was not aware of that. So that is cool. I knew that he was in lots of things, but I did not know that. So episode 2 starts off with, I love this, Megatron talking about raising people from the dead with his dark energon. And so he's like, yeah, we need to test it. Starscream, are you willing to kill yourself so we can test
he's
it?
just like, hey, Starscream, come over here, buddy.
It's not like, hey, let's kill one of the million drones we have or anything like that, or consider a possible option.
He's very much willing to just sacrifice Starscream.
Now, in all fairness, I don't think he was actually going to do it. Like, I think it actually was intended to be somewhat of a joke, and he was messing with Starscream. Maybe I'm wrong, but I
thought he was pretty serious.
I don't think he was actually going to kill his second in command. I feel like he was saying it to get Starscream to I don't know. Maybe I could be totally wrong. I think that he was doing it as a joke. It's very possible that he was not, but especially only because later we see that Megatron does know Starscream is important. There's a huge Starscream has the biggest character arc I'd say throughout the series versus anything else.
Definitely.
It's insane. It's probably the greatest Starscream arc of all, character arc of all time, to me. This is just to me. I'm very much aware that there are many good Starscream character arcs throughout all the series. He's a very interesting character. I think this is my favorite. But, I think that he does think he's important. It's very possible that at this point they hadn't decided that much of the story, so they don't know that, and that he did mean it. The way he said it, I don't know, it just kind of seemed like it was being a joke, but almost like, ha ha ha, kind of. Like, one of those things where you're, laughing, but it's like, I kind of do mean it. But yeah, he asked me, Starscream, will you kill yourself? And he goes, no, it's okay. I just killed an Autobot, so you can use that.
Yeah.
And they use Cliffjumper. Megatron lets him kill the Viacons, which I think is funny.
I do want to mention something. So, in this continuity, and they would have established this by now, because they would have had the novel written. I'm trying to remember when War for Cybertron came out. But Starscream is very much supposed to be a scientist in the Align continuity. And as a scientist, you think maybe he'd go, hey, maybe we should do this in a controlled environment, not in a live energon mine with tons of people. Like,
How big of a scientist was he in the Alien
he
continuity?
was
Because
the one running Triptychon Station.
really, I thought he was mainly in charge of security. I knew that he was somewhat of a scientist. I didn't think he was that.
In War for Cybertron, I think they do kind of set him up as one.
Don't
Like,
get me
because
wrong, I
he's
know
like,
that he
I've
is a
protected
scientist,
this station, I've run this station for this long, and like Jetfire's working with him, and they're both
Yeah.
scientists and stuff. So I'm kind of like, huh.
In all
Kinda
fairness,
like-
Starscream's like been one of the most corrupted people at this point. So,
Oh yeah, that's
in all fairness, I don't think he really cares, especially because it's not him.
that is
so-
very true.
But no, that is a valid thing to point out, though, is that Starscream's character is somewhat of a scientist. That's never brought up in this show, though. So I mean, line continuity.
It kind of
is a-
shows occasionally though, with like some of the stuff he says, you're like, all right, he's kind of like scientifically aware.
Like he knows stuff, yeah. Now, in all fairness, we will very much have other people take over that role later.
Yeah.
And it changes, but there's mainly one later. One of my favorites, but that's not for a long time. So he brings back Cliffjumper. Cliffjumper is a zombie, goes nuts, he kills some Viacons, and he starts running towards them, and Starscream's like, what are you doing? It's just killing everything. Like, it's crazy. Megatron's like, yeah, exactly, it's awesome, and then slices him in half as he runs towards him. The Autobots see that, hey, his Cliffjumper's life signal popped back on. That's a terrible glitch. How dare you mess with us when we're mourning, computer? And then RC's like, we have to go. And then no one questions it. Which, I mean, I don't know. I guess that kind of shows the fact that, like, they are family. But Ratchet waves it off immediately as, like, oh, this is just a glitch. But no one really cares. I don't know. I think that does show that, like, hey, they are a family. They very much, if there's the slightest chance, they'll go for it. Except Ratchet, who's just like, no, it's a glitch. Don't worry about it. But I don't know. Do either of you have anything about the zombie scene?
Not really.
Okay.
Just that it was kind of strange.
Yeah, it was weird. I don't think it's bad or anything, but it's odd. Then we get they're firing an energon mine again, which of course, because why not? But so yeah, the zombie thing was weird. Do either of you have anything to say about that?
I did want to put in, before I decided to have technical difficulties, Fowler's introduction. We kind of skimmed over that.
Oh, did we? Where did that happen?
Oh yeah, I forgot about that too.
But I want to mention that during that scene, he's very fine with a lot of civilian casualties. Like, because he's like, we'll use our weapons. And the Prime's like, no offense, but we could do less damage to the civilians and still protect them. And he's like, oh, whatever. And I'm like, Fowler's kind of fine with killing a lot of people.
I mean, I think it's more like he wants the situation under control. I think.
It could be that.
It wasn't a moment to. It wasn't a moment to specifically meant to show like how uncaring Fowler is. I think it's a moment to show how caring Optimus is. He's like, I'm not going to risk lots of human lives. I can't do that, even if you can. I think Fowler's thinking more of the reason, like, we need to take this down. Like, this isn't a joke.
Yeah.
Like, why aren't you doing anything?
I got that, but I was just like, that's a really weird way to write it, is what
but
I'm
in all
saying.
fairness, they're also trying to get Fowler, because the whole thing with Fowler's character is that he seems all rough and tough at first, but then he goes in and he very much is on their side. That is the thing they explore throughout the series. And then also something I skipped is that the first time we get the line, I needed that.
Yep.
That is a very common thing. You would know that. You would not know that yet, John. But that is a line that is said very much.
It's gonna be a thing. It's like almost once every couple episodes.
Yeah.
It's used very often.
So.
But with the zombie scene, with them going to face Zombie Cliffjumper as well, one thing I questioned was Ratchet is a medic, yet can just build ground bridges.
Ratchet's also been shown to be a lot of a tech guy too. And in all fairness, when you only have 4 or 5 people to take care of, what are you gonna do with your free time? So.
Yeah, I just find it interesting because, like, even G1 established that, like, the scientists and the medics were not the same thing. Like, because, what was it? I think think it was Pipes in G1 said something about like he's an engineer, not like a physicist, because he's like nuts and bolts. I can do that, but like mathematics and quantum theory is not my thing.
Whereas like Wheeljack was the scientist of season 1. Which Wheeljack is on this show, but that is very much not in his character.
He is very much a departure from the normal Wheeljack.
Which I'm okay with. I'm okay with changing. You know, that's fine. But he's not in here. But yeah, I do find that a bit interesting that you pointed out. I think it's more along the fact that they needed to keep the cast small, both for budget reasons, but also story reasons. You can only have so many Autobots before it's not really a family anymore. And so
especially with CGI, it gets expensive.
Yeah, it is expensive, but also I think that having another member this early would just make it harder to express the family theme, too.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's the main reason. The main reason is definitely for cost.
You know, I just thought it was interesting that like they make him the scientist and the medic.
No, he definitely he fulfills both roles, which is not a common thing previously. But
yeah.
Although in all fairness, Rhinox in Beast Wars, but
I wouldn't even consider him like a medic. He's just like go in the CR chamber. You'll be fine. Like
that's true, but they don't need to take up both positions, whereas Ratchet does do medical things in this too, so I guess it's fair to say he does both, but it's also made very clear he's very old, so he has lots of experience at lots of things, so he even fights too, so which we will see eventually.
If they could make a ground bridge, why couldn't they just make a
space bridge?
Yeah, a space bridge.
Or
why couldn't they just modify their...
They don't have the energon or the resources.
Yeah, like there's a difference between sending a signal across the planet versus like across the solar system. And he actually did say that. He was like, I was able to call people together enough to get anyone on the planet, but like we're nowhere near a space bridge where that takes so much more energy. So
yeah, it's ridiculous.
So that actually was explained, so.
Oh, yeah. Well, then I must have...
It's really quick. That's totally not a big thing that like you would have been like asleep for. He says it real quick.
Yeah.
Then we see Raphael's a genius.
This
is the first example. It happens a little bit more later too.
This one was like okay because it's like they're running on like human operating systems. All right,
this one's okay.
That.
It's the next episode that's just bad. But this one, there's a bunch of errors popping up on the computers. And it's like, oh man, and he's going, why are you using like human tech? And he goes, well, it's not by choice. Like, do you think I want to use human computers? If I had Cybertronian computers, which in all honesty, that's what I was thinking. I was like, why would you even ask that? Do you think that he's like, oh yeah, I love all this older human tech. It's so great. But he asked him.
Kind of reminded me of Windows XP.
and then Raphael just plugs in and he goes like, this isn't a child's thing, and then Raphael fixes it right away. He goes,
he's just like, I got it.
Yeah. So in all fairness, they did establish this human tech. This is a 12-year-old genius. I think it's fair to say he's a genius, and this is slightly acceptable. It's pushing it, but it's acceptable. But either way, that's the first time we get to this, which is not a theme that we will stop seeing anytime soon. Next thing is, did anyone find it weird the way, I think it was Optimus or Bulkhead, I don't remember, but someone said, RC, what did you see? But like they said it like that.
Oh, yeah.
Did anyone think that was a little weird? That's totally just a small thing. It has nothing to do with plot. It's honestly completely irrelevant. But it's just, RC, what did you see? Like, they said it kind of weird, which I just thought was odd. Like, were they just trying to rhyme? I don't know. It was just a weird thing. It's not important at all. But then RC like faints from the dark energy.
Yeah.
I thought that was a little odd. Not bad. I don't
know. It makes sense to me.
Why she didn't stay infected? Because
she went to the decontamination chamber, which basically plot device as to why she's not infected. But I think it's because she wasn't literally. It wasn't a spike of dark energon plunged into her body. She got a little scratch. So
but it got on just a little bit of technology and it turned it into a little drone.
But that piece of technology was super tiny. So that's my argument to that. Not that yours is. I'm not saying that yours is irrelevant, because it's not. In all fairness, it's mainly because plot device. They have a decontamination chamber. They're fine. Like that. Mainly, that's just it. But I think my argument would be that it would have taken over her had it had more time. Whereas the piece of tech, it was way smaller, and no one noticed, so it had time to infect. Although it actually did it almost instantly, so that's irrelevant. But it's way
Yeah.
smaller. Whereas RC is both sentient, so that's something it has to overtake, and
Also, she didn't have any open wounds for it to go into.
exactly. I think it just scratched her a little bit on her palm, but it wasn't like
It didn't
she
even
went-
scratch her. Like it was just on her.
Really, I could have swore that it was scratched.
I thought it was
No,
just like I thought it was
As far
just a
as I
drop on
remember,
her
it was
hand.
just on her.
Oh, okay. That's totally fair. Then that's even more than it wasn't. So that's fair. But I did find it odd that she fainted, but I did think that actually points out, because I don't know if it's at this moment or a little later, but the humans are like, wow.
Yeah, no, that was
It-
right then.
Okay, yeah, exactly. It goes to show that, like, man, these are robots that, like, can get hurt, they can die, they have feelings, like, they're sentient, which I think is a really important thing, because that's one of the biggest parts of Transformers. And that is by far the biggest part of Transformers, is that they are robots that are sentient. That is not something you see in pretty much any other franchise. Period.
Yeah.
Not never, but especially as main characters, like robots that feel. It's not if it's a robot, even like they push like, oh, it's programmed, like things like that, but it's very rare. Whereas this is an entire race of non-organic beings. They are totally robotic, but they are still sentient, which is what is so important to Transformers. And I thought that was good that they already got it out of the way by episode 2.
Yeah.
Also, Jack is 16. He brings home a motorcycle, which is not, it's so nice motorcycle. And his mom is like, oh my God, what are you doing? When she transformed in front of him, in front of her, but I guess she didn't see it, which is a little weird because she literally did
Yeah.
it as the car was pulling in, so I don't get that. But, oh my God, you have this motorcycle. Where'd you get it from? He's 16.
He's a grade A bullshitter, and I love it.
Where did he? I just don't understand. How can you be accepting of your kid who is 16? How much money does he have saved up? Like how?
Probably
Yeah,
not.
he's like,
enough.
it's
know-
used. It's like, that would still
There would
cost money.
still be way more money than you're making at that stupid McDonald's if you're 16. Like if you're 18 and literally you've been saving for 2 years, maybe you have enough if that's all you've been saving for to buy.
Yeah, and he
Like-
just works at, like, McDonald's.
But he's 16. That's the thing. Like he would have just gotten a job recently. So like, how? But whatever. His mom's a little like I'm the way they could have explained the mom like not thinking it was a robot or anything is just like, did you steal it? Like that's, in all honesty, I feel like that would have been the first reasonable thought, is like, there's no way you bought this. Like if you did, then show me some paperwork. But like, did you steal this bike? Which I'm not saying that you'd be okay with, but
He's such a grade A bullshitter, though, that it's kind of funny. Like, it's such a great scene, though.
no, it was, and she's a character that we will see more of later in the series too, and I actually do kind of like her.
She becomes a really good, like, supporting role.
Yeah, she's not a bad character at all. She's a good mom. I thought it was funny whenever RC is taking Jack to leave. She
And
says
she's
a
like,
couple
"Write
things
a
"Get your
note."
helmet," but also write a note. Your mom worries. Like you saw his mom for 30 seconds, but okay. I mean,
Yeah.
again, it is one of those things where it's like the humans are becoming part of the family, so it's already like that. Like they're already making that bond. But still, it was just a little. It made me giggle. It was just like, like RC's just being his mom essentially. But whatever.
Yeah, it's great.
I thought it was funny that she was saying you can watch cartoons with Bumblebee. So I guess there's a slight little nod to Bumblebee being slightly kiddish. But again, most
And
times
he's just like, I'm
series-
16, I don't watch cartoons.
Oh yeah, but he specifically said that was something I wanted to bring up at the stage. He specifically says, "I'm a grown-up, mom. I'm an adult, mom." I don't know if he says adult, but he definitely says grown-up.
He
Like-
says, like, I'm 16, I gotta grow up sometime.
But like, you're 16. You're a kid. You're very much a kid when you're 16.
I don't
You
know,
just-
can we really say much? We're all, like, 18.
That's still more than 16. Like,
That is very true.
I'm not saying that I am a full-fledged adult yet. I am not, I mean, I live in a dorm alone, like, not away from my family and stuff, but I am not, like, an independent. But there's a difference.
Yeah.
But me, he's 16. He's a kid. I was very much a kid when I was 16. I'm still very kiddish, but there's a big difference between your 16 and 18. 16, you just might learn how to drive. That's pretty much it.
Yep.
Only difference. There's literally nothing else. So I just thought that was...
They constantly portray the characters as older than they actually are, to be honest.
I'm curious how much time passes by to the end of the show. like when Jack, like how old Jack is by the time
I'm
the show
not totally
ends.
sure, to be honest.
I'm really curious about that. I
How
don't
long
know if
does the show run for?
the show ran for like 3 seasons,
Yeah,
which I
but
think,
the way the show works, it is like there's no real time skips.
yeah, but in all
So
fairness, there's no time skips that we know of, but there are
yeah,
some
but
arcs
all
that
the
end
major
in
arcs
between.
go back to back. That's the thing.
But they don't all necessarily set each other up in the last episode of each other. Like they go from
Yeah.
beginning to end, but like in all fairness, there's space in between that they could have that. So
You also have
I
to
don't
remember that
know.
like the stuff like end of season 1 to like the end of the first arc of season 2 is only like a few days. I'm pretty sure. Like
Yeah,
it's not a long time, and then like you have the arc where they're all at different places on Earth and they play them out at the same exact time,
uh
and
huh.
that's like a good like 5 episode thing, I think.
Yeah,
So
but I'm saying in between like in
yeah,
between arcs is where time can and probably would realistically pass because it's not like they'd be doing all these things nonstop. Like you'd get tired after a month of nonstop being with the. I'm not even talking about the robots, but like the humans specifically. Like you can only handle so much. But
yeah,
I am curious about the passage of time because that's something they don't ever really touch upon until Robots in Disguise, which is like way later. But that's a time gap between shows, not in between
yeah.
episodes of a show. So I don't know. Yeah, John, you asked like what's the time frame? We have no idea. There's the first season is like 26 episodes. I want to say the second season somewhere around there, probably the same. And then the third season only had like 13 episodes, and then it ends with a movie. Um, but so yeah, it has a decent amount of episodes, but it's not like a super super long show.
Yeah.
Whereas there's some shows that go on like 7. Like they can even go past 10 seasons. Some, but that's too much in my opinion. Once it gets past 10, it's like okay, it's time to stop. But
Yeah. What is it?
um, yeah, we
I
have no idea
wanna
about the time passage. So
I wanna touch on something with Starscream and Megatron actually. That's like
okay,
not long after the scene with them and all with the humans and all that. Starscream makes up like a lot more statements than G1 Megatron, like and Galvatron. Like Starscream is a grade A liar in this show essentially, or like very exaggerating because you have him go where he's like, "I killed Optimus Prime," and Megatron's like, "Did you really though?" Like,
Megatron's like we've been trying to do that for like millions of years, and it hasn't worked. So I don't think you just did it. Like.
yeah. It's like in the G1 movie where Unicron's like you exaggerate. Like
Yeah, and I think that it works for Starscream. Like that's
oh
very much
yeah.
on purpose. He is, and again, this show, the character it does the most for is Starscream, without a
Yeah.
doubt. I'm not saying there are plenty of great characters in this show, but no one has the arc that Starscream does. And so
Yeah.
they are going places with this character, and right up, they're setting up that he is something else. That's for sure.
With his
Um,
high heels and his eyebrows.
Yes, which honestly, here's a little thing. The first time I watched the show, I did not like his look at all, and this is as
Huh.
a kid. I was unbiased. Like
I
it wasn't.
always dug his look.
It was not. This is like the first few times I watched the show. Like this is because this is somewhat what got me into Transformers too. Um, it wasn't even like comparing to G1 Starscream or anything. Like I didn't have a lot of frame of reference. It was just he looked weird to me. Like it was almost like a bone white face. It was super skinny. He just stood out from everyone else. And I didn't like it at first, but as the series went on, I loved it. It's probably my favorite. It's definitely my favorite Starscream as a character, but the design works so well for that specific character that it's one of my favorite designs, even though it's so radically different from anything else of him. So,
Yeah.
but yes, I will point out that
It
I
reminds
did
me a lot of animated Starscream.
in how
And
it
just
looks.
the exaggerated look.
I would say that in like the idea, yes, but in terms of like how he literally looks like
You know,
traits,
just like
none. Yeah, he
he
doesn't look like
reminds me he
anyone.
reminds me of it in that they both have like this eccentric look to them.
Yeah, which I think this one takes to a whole new level.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, because he's still recognizable as Starscream and animated. This show, it's nothing. I'd say I would argue, which feel free to debate if I'm wrong, but that he looks less like any other Starscream than movie Starscream.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm curious for those of you who are listening, if you agree or disagree with me. Let me know. I'm just curious. I
I like his
personally
look.
think I love it. I love it. But I think it is the most different, like out of any of them, literally any
Mm,
of them.
I
Compared to
would
TV.
say I'm trying
I'd
to
say
think.
that's more different than movie. Like I think
No, are you talking like from G1 Starscream or
from
like?
yeah, I'm from G1 Starscream, but honestly, any interpretation of Starscream, like
I
those
would say
general traits
Armada
and
was a
themes.
pretty far departure from the normal Starscream look.
Not nearly as much. It still had
Not
like
nearly as much, but
wings on the
like
back.
I
He
would.
has a G1 head in that.
That's true, but I'd say like some of the Cybertron designs were a very departure from the original in some regards.
Uh, I know what you mean, but in all honesty, not. This is
Oh
still a
yeah, no,
level
not
above
as
that.
big,
Yeah,
but
no,
like
no. I'm not saying that the character hasn't changed at all. I'm just saying that
yeah.
this is a level above anything else we've gotten with him
Oh yeah,
before,
no,
and it
definitely.
works. They went to extreme lengths, and I think it works. Um, only other thing I have. Oh, Megatron just stabs himself. Doesn't even like
Oh
think of.
yeah, and he's like, oh,
I
like,
know, you just go nuts and the Energon. Like
I could
I
see the future.
what what if he stabbed himself with a Dark Energon and died, and then the series
Wouldn't
is just like the Autobots just take down Starscream and the
roll
series ends.
credits?
Yep, like okay. I don't know. I feel like there needed to be a little bit of setup. Like, oh, there's some reason I think that stabbing myself with Dark Energon would work. Possibly, maybe. I don't know. I mean, in all fairness, Megatron is always a crazy character. This is a different version of Megatron than like G1 Megatron. I could see G1
I would
Megatron doing
argue
something
this
like.
one's a different kind of crazy.
Oh no no no! I'm not saying he's the same. That's what I'm saying. It's different. But I'm saying I could see G1 Megatron doing that type of thing later in this show. I wouldn't see that. Like he's don't get me wrong, not that the level of danger is the same, but he's terrified when he sees Optimus Prime with the Star Saber. Like he's
Oh
like,
my god,
run
yeah,
now, go. Like we're not debating. We are leaving now. Like he's
yeah,
terrified. Whereas this doesn't even seem to scare him the slightest. So I don't
yeah.
know. Again, it's not nearly as dangerous as the Star Saber because
Either
that's
he overestimates himself, or he is just afraid of the power of others and not the power of himself.
I don't know. But I did think it was interesting that you
Yeah.
just totally it's just oh let's go for it. Ugh.
Yep. Yeah.
But of course it works. Last
And
thing
that's
for
the end of the episode.
the last thing actually we see is Ratchet dropping the drip of dark
Ah,
energon
yeah.
onto that
Yeah.
little piece of trash or whatever that Bulkhead smashed earlier. And it turns into a little beast thing, which actually reminded me of Revenge of the Fallen when Ravage is trying to get the Allspark shard and he spits out those little beads and they turn into that blade beast.
Yeah.
It kind of looked like that, and it made
It
similar
reminded me of what the
noises.
Allspark does as well, where it just brings stuff to life.
Yeah, but I mean, yes, it's very similar to that in the fact that it just brought it to life. But I mean, like in terms of the design, like because it was like an eyeball with like blades around it, which is essentially what that was in Revenge of
Yeah.
the Fallen. So that's just what it made me think of. Although, now that I think about it, this came out in 2008, right?
What?
The show came out in
The show
2008.
came out in 2010.
Oh, 2010. You're right. Never mind. So it's still after Revenge of the Fallen. I totally got it mixed up. We already talked about that. Whatever. I'm crazy. But yeah. Then this is probably if it was a reference, which I kind of feel like it was I don't know. The aesthetic seemed very similar to me. I could just be making connections where there aren't any, but I just thought it seemed similar, so I'd mention that. Then episode 3. Unless anyone has anything else to add to the second episode. Anyone?
No.
I have a question. How many Decepticons are there besides, are there any more other than
Yes,
Megatron,
they
Starscream,
introduce them as
and
time goes on.
Soundwave?
So you're seeing the big players that are around right now, mainly. Breakdown.
Knockout comes around. Knockout comes
Later.
around in a few episodes.
And Breakdown. Don't they show up at the
Yeah.
same time? Could I be
I
wrong?
believe so. I believe they
Because
show
they're
up around the same time.
So there's at least there's 2 more, and then others will come in like through
Very
space
much.
and stuff.
Oh,
Like-
they will very much show up.
So there are other characters,
Okay.
but to answer your question, they are never like the Autobots, whereas the Autobots do not have any mindless drones. Not that the Viacons are necessarily mindless, but obviously they're just like clone type things, where there's a ton of them. They mean almost nothing. there are some pretty significant Decepticon characters that show up, but as of right now, like these episodes, you didn't miss any. It is Starscream, Megatron, Soundwave.
I definitely felt like an uneven sides, whereas like there's a lot more Autobots than there are Decepticons, and it kind
Well,
of felt uneven a little bit.
character-wise, right now, yes. Numbers-wise, no, not at all.
Yeah, I meant character-wise.
Yeah,
not,
I know that's what
not-
you meant. I just wanted to point that out in case anyone was confused. Yeah, number-wise, if you haven't guessed yet, that entire ship is full of Decepticons. So there's
And they double that number later on.
yes, it only gets bigger. But yeah, there are more Decepticons that come later. I wouldn't say there's ever a definitive Decepticon team like there is the Autobot team. Like we don't ever see them all fight together all at once. But there are some cool like partners that go out later. Like Knockout and Breakdown are really cool characters that are partners. But also you see cool team ups later, like Soundwave, Shockwave. Like there's events where they team up, but in all honesty, they are not nearly the family.
A lot of them work independently of themselves
Yes,
a lot of the
and it's
time.
just occasionally like their missions cross over, and that's why. The only exception to that rule is essentially Breakdown and Knockout.
And
which is-
Starscream and Knockout later on as they work together on a
Yeah,
lot of stuff.
which is essentially replacing the relationship, because anyways,
Stuff that happens later.
yeah. Third episode. So basically, they know it's Dark Energon, and Optimus and Ratchet are like, hey, well, Optimus is like, hey, we need to go to this place where I think Megatron's going to show up, since I know his plan now.
It's like, I know Megatron's plan perfectly, despite him, like, not being around for 3 years and me not talking to him for, like, millennia.
In all fairness, I think knowing what Optimus knows, it wasn't a huge...
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that it was an unrealistic guess. Like, an unrealistic
Yeah.
guess. Whereas he's been leading the war, he's well aware of the fact that there was a major battle on Earth. So, there's a major battlefield full of dead bodies. Before I get into that, though, I just want to finish the recap real quick. Basically, that happens. The Autobots are... Bulkhead, Bumblebee, RC are supposed to watch the humans at base while Optimus and Ratchet go off, and we don't see Optimus and Ratchet, and like they see them in the beginning and the end. Most of the episode is craziness going on with the characters because RC and Bumblebee just leave because they don't want to watch humans. Bulkhead has to distract them from Fowler.
I didn't catch that at first. I thought that they were staying in the cave, and I didn't catch that they left.
No,
and
they literally
I
left
was
on
like,
patrol.
where did they go?
Yeah, they actually left, which is awful. RC is an interesting character in this show.
Yeah.
She's very much flawed on purpose, and that's something they explore.
Oh, very much so.
And they explore that.
You'll find out a lot about her history as time goes on.
And especially, you have no idea how much what happens with Klimp's jumper has affected her until later. Like,
Yeah.
that is a major, major
It still
thing.
comes up until the end of the series, essentially.
Yes, constantly.
So-
Okay, I don't mean every episode, but it is very much a theme that happens, that it's referenced multiple times.
Oh yeah, a
and her
lot.
backstory is explored. But then craziness ensues where Bulkhead's trying to go rescue Agent Fowler after he leaves the base and discovers the humans. They go there, they're in trouble, all that. Do we get... What happens to the humans and the Autobots by the end of the episode? Not Optimus and Ratchet, but like, do they have... Does it end yet? This is part 3 of a part 5 series, so I kind of...
The episode ends with Megatron raising the army and Optimus and Ratchet being like, oh,
No, yeah, I know that.
we're screwed.
I'm saying, was there anything I missed with, other than like
No.
the fact that... Okay, yeah, so basically it leaves
Bumblebee and
off with them.
RC are on their way back to base. Bulkhead and them are
Again,
still.
and all the humans are now near the Decepticon ship and they're screwed. So basically,
Yeah.
we're left with that. Then it comes back to the Optimus and Ratchet thing at the end of the episode, it was a smart diversion. That was very much on purpose because they're trying to save the big end game for later. Whereas they would have the Optimus Ratchet thing at the beginning of the episode, you would have been like, I don't want to watch the humans, the Autobots do this when
Yeah,
Optimus Prime
exactly.
and Ratchet are about to fight a zombie army with Megatron. Like, yeah, so they say that till the end, and Optimus was right, which I think I like how Ratchet put it. He's like, man, for once in my life, I wished you weren't right, and you were. And yeah, he's like, yep, there's a battle here, there's lots of dead bodies, this is where Megatron's going to raise them, and he does. He just throws the Dark Energon on the ground. He's like, hey, look at me, I'm going to raise an army. Yeah.
He's just like, I am God.
And so they're about to fight, which we will get some of that in the next episode. We will get to see Ratchet fight. He is capable. Doesn't do it super often, but he is very much a capable character.
And it's always great when he does.
Don't forget Special Agent Fuller's whole part in this.
Yeah,
which I thought was good.
I wrote down some quotes from him because.
I'm not done.
What an Uncle Sam's beard.
Yeah, I thought that was funny, but we will get through that. I just want to recap it real quick. So now going back towards the beginning of the episode, first thing I have is because at the very beginning is where they reference the fact they're going off to this basically graveyard of dead people. Dead Cybertronians, because that's where Optimus and Ratchet are going. Why are there no Predacon remains? You would know what that means, John. So like this is a thing that has to do with later in the series. Basically,
I mean, that's why though. That's why it's not there.
Yeah, I know that's the real reason, but I'm trying to think if there's an in-universe reason as to why there are no Predacon remains there. And also, okay, one thing I have in all fairness is that Predacons, there's just a few fossils, whereas these are bodies.
Yeah, I made a comment in my notes, like saying, how did humans not discover this?
Yep, that was the other
Cybertronian
thing I had is how did humans never dig this up?
It's like how did they not? And it's not like it's in the middle of a jungle or anything. It's just like a rock formation.
Yeah, it's like, is it near? I guess it's never said where it is. I kind of just.
I mean, they ground bridge to it.
Yeah, I was assuming it was in Arizona just because it's still kind of desert-y, kind of.
Yeah.
Honestly, we have no idea because they don't drive there. They ground bridge there, so it could be anywhere on the planet. But I don't know. What if that's Area 51? I'm just saying. That's the only explanation I could think of as to why humans haven't dug it up is because, well, they found it, and that's Area 51. But that's
I mean, the humans are very, like, not at all aware of anything on Earth in this show.
Mm-hmm. There's very little people that are aware of the Transformers, so, yeah. But I just want to point that out. Yeah, they didn't find them. That's more of a plot hole. That's not. There's no. I'm kind of kidding about the Area 51 thing. I mean, it'd be kind of interesting if they actually tried to take that route and explain it. But I feel like that would have. It just would have diverted attention from the plot too much. It's just like, don't think about it too much. There's just Cybertronian.
Yeah. See, I look at it like this. The humans are not very knowledgeable on anything Transformers, despite working with them. Because Fowler, when Laserbeak goes after him, he's like, "There's a flying one." Like that's essentially what he says. It's like
he doesn't even know that Transformers can fly.
It's like how like what lack of briefing did he get that he doesn't know this? Like,
well, I don't think any of the humans. Like, I think that.
Yeah.
I think that literally we see every human that knows about the Transformers in the show.
Yeah.
Other than. Okay, that has seen the Transformers in the show. I'm assuming that, like, the president or whoever Fowler's boss is aware that there are aliens, but I don't think they've ever seen them, so I don't think it's that well
I mean, we get to meet some of Fowler's bosses later down the line, so... There's the interview episode.
I vaguely remember that, but I can't actually remember what the bosses look like. That's okay, it's not a big deal, but
it's like just some generic army dudes, but yeah.
Yeah. But yes, Laserbeak is big, which I'm glad because I'd worried that whenever he was going after him, like whenever we knew that Laserbeak is going to attack Agent Fowler, that like he was going to be tiny, which he's very much not if you go by scale of how big Soundwave is. And
yeah,
he's as big as Soundwave.
He's his entire chest essentially.
Yes, and you see him and he is massive next to that helicopter. Yeah. So I'm glad. As a kid, I always thought that Laserbeak was tiny, and because past iterations of him are, this is definitely, I think this is literally the biggest Laserbeak there is.
For sure.
I'm almost certain. And so you get to see that, which I'm glad, because as a kid, I always just thought he was smaller for some reason, but he isn't. I think it's because of the toy. The toy was pretty small, but...
Oh, he was minuscule.
Yeah.
And then they had that one where he came with Ravage.
Yes, the Beast Hunters toy, which never
and
actually
it was like
the show, but
yeah, and the Ravage is just like a little. It's like the size of like a Titan Master.
Yeah, which I do. I actually have both of those, but yeah, Laserbeak.
Then we have them try and track down Fowler.
Yes, which this is the next thing. A 12-year-old hacks the government to track their agents.
Yeah, he just kind of does that, and I'm like,
just like dogs.
What?
Okay,
yeah, just like dogs.
I can excuse the fact that, like, maybe he knows that. Like, yeah, like, maybe that's some fun fact that he learned. But he hacks the government and
off his laptop as well, that is clearly just connected by Wi-Fi and nothing else. He's not plugged into the Autobot system.
This is where
He's not
they
like
took it too far. It's
he's
just-
not even plugged into Ethernet. He's just doing it all off Wi-Fi.
Which like, that bothered me some. Why didn't they just have like the Autobots have a tracker for Fowler? I mean, in all fairness, it's like I'm the one who's hosting you, like you're my alien team. Why would I give you my tracking information? I don't know. Like I understand
Yeah,
maybe
but
why
they could have
wouldn't have
found it. Like,
Yeah, but like, really, you made a 12-year-old hack the government on Wi-Fi?
yeah, they literally make a point of saying how old he is. Migo's like, "Are you 2?" And he's like, "I'm 12
Yeah.
and a quarter." And
Yeah,
I'm
I
like,
know.
"Okay."
Which I'm like, why did
Okay.
you? Why? But whatever. It happens. I think this is the worst case of that ever happening. I don't think it's ever this bad again.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it goes away. Actually, I don't remember any other specific instances. I'm sure it comes up later with him being smart. But I don't think there's ever another instance where, especially because he gets trained in Cybertronian tech later, like to help Ratchet. But right now,
Yeah.
he just hacked the government off of Wi-Fi with no
It's
reason
ridiculous.
to be able to do so.
He's like, "Hey guys, I can do this. I do this in my spare time."
He took like 5 seconds to do it too. That was the crazy.
Oh yeah, he's just like,
But
and we're
whatever.
done.
John, what did you think of that?
That was one of those kind of moments where I'm just kind of like, what am I watching at the moment?
Yeah, I feel ya. The next thing I have is Bulkhead gutted a dude.
Yeah, but like that's not the most brutal thing we see in the show.
No, it's not. But I just think that it's interesting. Is there another show where we specifically see someone rip out someone's guts? Don't get me wrong. The way they did it
Probably.
didn't look so violent, but I can't. Don't get me wrong. There's lots of stabbing, shooting, and everything in
Yeah,
Transformers. It is
that
violent, but-
definitely did stand out to me whenever that happened.
Yeah, and he specifically, because he's like over and over saying, look away, and then he does it, and then she's like, whoa, that's so cool, which is very much her character. That's exactly how she's supposed to be.
I mean, I have a lot.
That bothered me as well. Kind of troubled me a little bit.
That
Yeah.
she said, "Oh, cool."
Yeah.
Yeah.
She kind of like you'll notice this until they like explore her character way down the line. She kind of lacks sympathy for people.
Yes, like crazy. Which I think they try to give the, like, she's a rebellious teenager because she has the foster parents or whatever. Which
Yeah,
they
but that
said
doesn't
was
excuse her for not having
no.
like.
Yeah, exactly. She watched
She's
that-
like kind of psychotic.
very much so. Which I think is the intention, and that, it is explored
Yeah, but it makes me
later,
like her less. Like that's the thing.
I know.
It's like,
I'm not saying it makes me like her. I'm just saying that was their intention to make
Yeah.
her crazy, and that it personally doesn't work for me very well until later. I don't hate her. Like, I don't dislike her. I just don't like her either. I'm honestly neutral about her. But I thought that was interesting that Bulkhead gutted a Decepticon. Which,
Yeah.
again, there's
with his bare hands too. He's just like,
Yeah.
"Hush."
Which, again, I can't think of an instance where that's happened in the past. Again, lots of impaling, lots of shooting. It's not like there's no violence, but there is a difference between shooting someone through the guts and shoving your hand inside of them and ripping out their guts. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
It did stand out to me. And not that it particularly bothers me, but just that they put that on the show. Which I was...
I mean, you have to remember, and this is why they were able to get away with it with the original show, is that as long as it's not humans, you could do whatever you want. Essentially.
No, yeah, exactly. That's how the movies work, too. They even have, like, blood type thing, where Energon is spilt red for the
Yeah.
Decepticons, where it looks
Oh
like
my god,
blood,
that
but it's
changed
not.
so much in the movies. Let's not get into that.
I know. But, yeah, so that was interesting that they showed that.
I
do you
think the
guys-
most notable thing that I saw in the last episode, RC used her feet to decapitate somebody by spinning around in circles.
Yeah.
I actually don't remember that. I mean, that sounds like an RC thing. I just don't remember that specific instance.
I do want to say that when RC fights in like this episode and the episode before, she's just amazing. Whereas in the first episode, she can't fight a single dude.
Yeah.
Which again, I'll chalk up to them it being the pilot and them
Yeah.
just trying to show stuff off.
Yeah.
So
Also, I thought it was interesting. The next thing I have is they're showing torture on screen of a human. Again, no
Yeah.
blood or anything, but they show him they're electrocuting a human to torture him for information. Which I did think that this is the first instance that we get that the humans and the Transformers are wrong about Fowler, where they think like, oh, he hates us. Like he'll squeal right away. Like he's gonna give our base away like that. Whereas he's like making a joke about it. He's like, you're not
I
gonna get
love him
anything
more.
from me.
He's
Which I
like, my
love.
customer service kind of sucks. Can I talk to the manager?
Yeah, exactly. I love that. Like I love how he's just being sarcastic the entire time, and he does not give it away. I think that's a really important thing is that he does not squeal in the slightest, and he even gets tortured for it. Which again, surprising for a kids show. I think it's along the
Right
lines
after you eat my star-spangled shorts.
that was.
You will, John. You will find that he has a lot of sayings that you will love throughout the show.
On purpose. Like that is not something that like that's just a weird one line that they had. Like he very much says stuff like that all the time, and it's funny.
Yeah,
That's great.
it is hilarious. To be honest, he makes them all the way like to the end of the show. You'll hear him making them.
Yeah, I think that's about all I have for this specific episode. I just gotta say that this opener already sets up the fact that this is a darker show than most previous Transformers shows, and also children's shows in general. It's not the darkest of children's show. I'd say the Clone Wars edges it out.
Yeah,
Ow. But in terms of things that I know, but in all fairness, like this is a darker show compared to a lot of things, especially Transformers, and it's something that we're seeing less of, especially modern day. But that's a television thing, not necessarily Transformers. Like it's the same thing where Clone Wars was pretty darn dark, whereas Rebels is same style of Clone Wars, but it's not nearly as dark, also not nearly as big a scale. But
I mean, Rebels only really gets dark when it comes to like the Clone Wars characters.
yeah, and they have moments like, well, in all fairness, I was thinking a lot of the moments are Maul, which is
Yeah, a lot
which-
of the moments are Clone Wars characters in
Yeah.
Rebels.
And then I'd say, yeah,
So.
like Ahsoka with Vader. So things like that. It's not that it never gets dark, but it's not nearly as dark as Clone Wars was. Same thing with Robots in Disguise, which I love. Don't get me wrong. I love that show. But
When Bisk,
yeah, exactly. But
give it 3.5 seasons. We'll get there.
it doesn't. This show has a very different approach to things than RID did, which was very much on purpose. That was intentional, but it's just an interesting thing that there was this era where we were pretty into dark shows. We've drifted away from it, but I personally like it this way. But
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it has more depth whenever it's darker.
yeah, and some people will complain that this show is too bleak. And in all honesty, things are all very hopeless for the Autobots a lot of the time. But I think that the whole family aspect is so much stronger than any other show that it still doesn't seem like hopeless to me. It's
Yeah.
a personal thing. That's more of a thing that we'll have to reflect on when we get to the end of the show, though. But that I do understand why people, and these are older fans, like who have seen other shows, that they thought it was too bleak. I do see how you could get that impression right away. It's darker than any other show just right off the bat, and it seems hopeless the entire time throughout the show. So I get that. Personally, I just like that in the story, but that's totally a personal preference thing. That has nothing to do with, like, is it better or not? That's totally personal opinion. Do you guys have
Yeah.
anything else about the third episode or anything in general? I just want to say the music, which I already mentioned for the first episode, I think is
Let me check my
magnificent.
notes.
I think it's magnificent for all 3 episodes, so I just wanted to put that in there again. It's that I love the music to this.
No, I went over like everything. I do want to say this. So one of my main problems with this series in general is like the lack of emotion Optimus Prime shows.
Mm-hmm.
And in this episode, RC makes a comment like, "Is that She goes, "Is that edge I hear?" Or like, "Then what's with the edge I hear in your voice?" And I'm like, "There was no edge in his voice. He just spoke normally." Like they'll like
Do you know
try
what-
and
do you
say
know what he
like,
said?
"Oh my."
I don't
It was
remember.
the whole like, "Oh, everything will be fine" or whatever. Like you're fine here. They're like, me and Ratchet are just going on recon. Nothing's gonna happen or whatever. Like when they're leaving, and she's just like, "Well, why do I hear an edge in your voice then?" And I'm like, and I'm thinking to myself like constantly throughout the show, and and John, you may notice this. Maybe it's just me, but they will say stuff about Optimus showing emotion, but he just doesn't show emotion. Like that's like he doesn't ever, in my opinion. Like he shows it occasionally, but it's not like enough for it to be like, oh yeah, he's an emotionally driven character. Now he's like a pretty boring character, to be honest. Like they even make points of stating it, and it really shows there. Like it starts there.
I'd kind of have to disagree with that. In all honesty, I don't think any Optimus Prime is super emotional, except one that I can think of.
I swear, if you say the movie one.
It is. He's more emotional than any other Optimus. That's not even debatable. Like that is not.
Yeah.
I'm not even saying that whether that's
And
good or bad.
I'm not
Totally.
going to count Primal
but-
in that because Optimus Primal isn't Optimus
He's a different
Prime.
character. I mean,
Yeah.
he still serves the same role,
My
but he's
my
a
thing is
different character.
I feel Optimus Prime is boring, and I always thought that from the beginning, like with this show, and I really noticed it looking back on it, is that I just find Optimus Prime to be boring, in this show. Like I love G1 Optimus Prime, like I love G1 Optimus Prime with his whole goofy dad sort of shtick. It's like I don't need that in this series, but it's like Optimus sometimes is just like kind of boring. Not gonna lie.
I feel like he's just an actual, like, a realistic, like, caring dad. Like he's more of a serious dad. Like he still has a dad tone to me, at least.
I just don't find him relatable, and that's the problem. Like I can find things like
in all fairness, I don't think Optimus Prime is supposed to be a relatable character.
yeah, that's the thing. But it's like
Wait, what were you
they-
gonna say, John?
Yeah, I've never Optimus Prime has never really been my kind of character.
I think the only
like
character,
he's always been cool, but it's just not been my
it's like
kind of character.
Captain America or Superman. Although I wouldn't say these as much
I would
of those.
disagree with you there.
it's like I feel like you should be able to like think of Optimus Prime as someone like you can talk to and still like he'll be like hey yeah it's okay because like I mean like a lot of incarnations of Optimus Prime are like that. G1, Unicron trilogy, like
I'd kind of have to. This is totally personal preference, and we'll get into this more as the show goes on. So we'll try to wrap it up now. But I personally think that Optimus, to me, and this is to me, in almost every series, is a legend. And that not necessarily always to the troops around him, but everyone still approaches him as like he is the.
it might just be because of how I am with it.
Yeah, and again, it's totally a personal thing, but I just see him as he's never a relatable character in terms, except honestly the movies where he gets really angry that all his friends are getting killed by the people he's protecting. But
We gotta save the humans. Now we gotta kill them all.
I mean, in all fairness, if you're gonna fight like years and years and watch all your friends die fighting for humans, and then humans start killing the ones you have left. I can't imagine. I mean, again, that's just the story going a certain direction, but I can't even imagine anyone, even G1 Optimus Prime, being able to stay sane through that. Like, really? Okay. Anyways, totally different thing. But yeah, so how do you feel about Optimus Prime? Let us know. But yeah, that's it for the first episode of TFPrimecast. We will finish with episode 2. We will finish the 5-part opener, Darkness Rising. Or is it Rising Darkness? It's Rising
Darkness Rising.
Oh, it's Darkness Rising. Oh my goodness, I can't get it right. We'll do part 4 and 5 for the next episode, episode 2. So definitely tune back for that next week. That will be up on a Friday. Yes, Friday. Late Thursday night, early Friday morning. Either way, it'll be up Friday. So definitely check us out for that. You can also follow us at Nerdy Geek Talk on Twitter and also on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, all those good places where you listen to podcasts, pretty much anywhere. You can find us. Follow Nerdy Geek Talk, subscribe, and you'll get all of our podcasts. This one, Steel City Bots, our main Transformers podcast. Also, Misaligned, which is our other brand new show, which is kind of our partner show, which is going over the aligned continuity in terms of order. So this first week, they had their first episode, and they did the origins of Primus and Unicron and the 13 Primes. Which is aligned continuity. The reason I say it's a partner show is because Transformers Prime is the main part of the aligned continuity. There's a lot of other material, but this is definitely the biggest part of it.
Comics, books, video games.
Yeah, there's comics, there's books, all of which I love, video games, but this is definitely the biggest part of the aligned continuity. This is the center. This is the center of it, I would say, the most important part. Whereas everything else, they're diving from beginning to end because it starts way before Prime and it goes way after Prime too. Well, it goes after Prime. I wouldn't say super long after, but it does go after Prime. And so definitely go check that out. Ant from TFU.info actually liked it. He tweeted that out, so I thought that was good. That they're settling into it. So don't judge it the first episode too hard if you don't like it because they're settling into it. In all fairness, I didn't give them a lot of direction because I want them to try to take a different direction, but
yeah, I am supposed to be a host on that, but I missed the first day because of family stuff. So,
but hopefully it'll be on next week, and I think that'll help. So
yeah,
definitely go check that out because it should be interesting, and you probably will learn some things you don't know. Again, this is our personal, a lot of the people on the network's favorite continuity. Not everyone's. For example, Aaron. That's why he's here. But
No, I like the aligned continuity.
no.
I just don't like Prime as much as Beast Wars.
Yeah. That's what I mean. As in like the favorite continuity. Like a lot of fans are G1, whereas our generation a lot are Prime or animated things like that. But yeah, so we have lots of material coming that way. Also check out, because John, you're here, Holocron Herald. That is our Star Wars, the Clone Wars breakdown series, which is just like this, just for Star Wars. And we do that in chronological order, because that show actually is not in chronological order when it was aired. So we're going out of order in terms of what episodes are aired, but in order of how it happens. So we break that down.
Yeah.
So that's neat. Another show. I said Steel City Bots is our main Transformers show, so you could follow us there too. But Awesome Asylum is the show that both of you guys are on. Although Aaron, you won't be on the next episode, right?
Yeah.
But that will be up if you're listening to this on the day it comes out, Friday. That'll be up the next day because we record that the day after, so Saturday. So definitely make sure to go check that out. There's a new trailer for the Ant-Man and the Wasp, so that should be interesting. I'm assuming that'll be probably one of the main topics of the episode.
Yeah. Sadly, I have to miss that, but
yeah.
I would love to talk about it. So.
But anyways, that's about it. So where can we find ourselves on social media if you want to find us? John, you go first. Where can people find you?
You can find me at Darth_Forge on Twitter.
And Aaron, where can we find you?
You can find me at Mariasha. That's MAROYASHA, and I am on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and pretty much everywhere. So you can find me pretty much anywhere you look, on some Transformers forums, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm. And you can find me at Eric Crowbar on Twitter, at Aramis Prime on Instagram. I post desk bots there all the time. Just got Thermidor, actually, for those of you who do see those. I have a lot of people that are really into them, like a little creepily sometimes, but you know, I'm not kidding. Some people are obsessed like with my obsession, and it's a little weird. But hey, I'm glad I'm entertaining.
As he's playing with a bisque.
Yes, there's a baby bisque in my hand, actually. That's funny. But I got Thermidor, so he'll be starring in those too now. I'm doing something different with him. But
yeah, I saw that.
You can follow us on, again, as I said before, Nerdy Geek Talk, anywhere, including YouTube, if you want to go YouTube. But we are on most podcast places now. Subscribe to Nerdy Geek Talk no matter where you are, so that way you get all of our podcasts. And yeah, that's about it. So thanks for watching, guys. Bye.
Bye.